I actually didn't know that this game was released until one day I remember being at the childcare centre and there was a kid there who was, I don't remember his name or anything like that, but I think he was a few years younger than me and he had this game and he was playing it and I was very curious because I didn't know this game existed, but I wanted to play it so I asked him if I could play it, if I could have a go at it. And he kept saying no, and he said that his mum doesn't want him to let anyone else play his game. Which I suppose is understandable for a parent, after all, you know, if your kid brings something to a childcare centre, you don't want anyone else stealing it. But that didn't necessarily ring with me at the time, I just thought I would like to play that game. And I did ask a few times and he always said no. I did eventually give up and I just started watching him play it. And I asked all sorts of questions. And I remember really wanting this game. I remember there was one time since then that we went on holiday. It would have been either Ibiza or Mallorca afterwards and I asked my mum if we could get it because they were selling it there at the airport. But it was in Spanish. And so she pointed out it's in Spanish, so we wouldn't be able to play it anyway. But we did eventually get it, me and my brother, and I am talking about Pokemon Gold, Silver and Crystal version. I got Gold, my brother got Silver. We always did that. My brother always ended up getting the other colour to what I did. So this time round I got Gold. I do remember I eventually got the Crystal version one Christmas. Don't remember exactly what year it was, but I remember this Christmas we also got scooters and I remember going to my grandma's house because I think it was my grandma that got it for me. I remember playing outside of my grandma's house on my scooter, going up and down this little hill over and over again and doing little bunny hops and stuff. Oh, memories. But at the childcare centre, my friend JP, he had the silver version and he was really obsessed with this game. He had played it for like 300 hours or so over this summer and he did get all of the Pokemon, that be through trading, and he did also use the cloning glitch. I don't remember exactly how that works, but it's something to do with transferring a Pokemon over to a box and then you turn the Game Boy off as it's saving. Something like that, I don't remember. But yeah, he basically abused that to give people whatever Pokemon they wanted. And he had loads of Pokemon that he had trained to level 100. And I also remember he used to give some of his Pokemon nicknames as well. So Mischievous used to call the Head. And there was someone else at the childcare centre who we started calling Head, because of this Pokemon for some reason, I don't know. But I haven't actually talked about the game, have I? This is basically the second generation of Pokemon, and this is when it hit the Game Boy Color. So graphics wise, it's very similar to the original first generation, but it has colour and it has a few advancements. Some basic advancements which the game needed was shortcuts. Like, for example, if you have a Pokemon with the cut ability, you can just walk up to the tree and then press A and then it will say, do you want to use cut? And then you can do it. You don't have to go into the menu to manually select the Pokemon and then select cut. And the same applies with Surf and Strength and all that. Also, one interesting thing is that this game introduced the experience bar during battle, so you can see your Pokemon gaining experience and how close they are to leveling up during battles, which is pretty nice. And the main thing that I noticed was the fact that now Pokemon can hold items. So you can get, for example, these different berries and the Pokemon can hold the item, which will add a certain effect to them. In some cases this is how you evolved Pokemon, but in the case of the berries it was kind of like they will at a random time just use it and gain some health back or recover from a status effect or something like that. And also, the second generation sort of crossed over with the first generation because once you've completed everything to do in Johto, which is the new area in the second generation, you can go back to Kanto to all the areas from Red, Blue and Yellow. And of course there are some areas that are cut off that you can't go to, but you can go to Kanto and fight all of the gym leaders there and it will play the battle music from Gen 1 and it will have all of those Pokemon from Gen 1 as well as all the new Pokemon in Gen 2. I have so many memories playing this game. Another memory that I have in regards to Pokemon Gold is I remember we used to sit in my nana's garden when we used to go around to see my nana, and she always made all these different cakes for us to eat. So I remember we'd have orange cakes and coconut cakes, and my brother didn't like the coconut ones, so I would eat the coconut ones and he'd have more orange ones. And then we'd sit in the garden and we'd play Pokemon. I also remember the Gen 2 of Pokemon also added this time mechanic where things happen in real time. So you'll have different events that run at different times. So for example, there's this book catching competition, which I think was on Tuesdays or something like that. And I remember there was a Lapras that I think you can only get on Fridays. But I've talked previously about how I absolutely loved the original Pokemon back when I got Pokemon Red, and how that really introduced me to this concept of RPGs. And so when I did see this person have Pokemon Silver at the childcare centre, I was pretty amazed that there was a new Pokemon game, and I was really desperate to get it. And I certainly do think that it was an improvement over the first generation, and it was just like that next stage up in amazement. Even though I was already over the whole, oh wow, you can catch Pokemon and keep them for yourself kind of thing, I was still really into the game, so playing this new one was really good for me. The first time I remember finding out about this game was in a magazine, because if you remember, before the internet, magazines were a big thing that they used to do, but I never really read that much in terms of game magazines. But one of the ones I had showed this game, and I remember seeing it and thinking, wow, that game's coming out, I want it. And I remember I used to go to my dad's house, and I remember saying to him, I want to see if there's an advert for that game on TV. And we used to always joke about and say that the advert will come on, and I want him to shout me into the room when the advert for the game comes on. This is of course presuming that there was a TV advert for this game, but I never did see one. But I remember the day that it came out, I asked my mum to go and get it for me. And this was one of the days that I was going to see my dad. And I remember on the journey back from with my dad thinking to myself, I can't wait to play this game. And I went home and she had it, she bought it for me, and this was during the short period of time where we had a PlayStation in the back room, and straight away I just played Final Fantasy IX. So the first thing that really struck me when I saw this game in the magazine was that there was a battle scene where you can play as 4 characters at once, and to me that was a new thing. It was like, wow, there's 4 characters in this battle, and that was something that I was looking forward to, because that was quite a novel concept. But the idea behind Final Fantasy IX is that with it being the final Final Fantasy game on the PlayStation, what they wanted to do was to harken back to the old times, to the old Final Fantasy games where you had 4 characters in a party, and you had characters with different job classes, and you had multi-targeting spells and all that. All of this I was completely unfamiliar with, and everything to me at the time was just new. This idea of having 4 character parties was a new thing. So I'm going to describe how the leveling system works in this game. In this game, you learn your abilities through equipment, and abilities can take one of 2 different forms. There's active abilities and there's support abilities, indicated with different crystals. Active abilities are indicated with a red crystal, and the support abilities are indicated with a blue crystal. And the way that you learn these abilities is that you equip things with these abilities on them. So for example, Vivi, you give him a staff with the Blizzard spell on it, and as long as he has that staff equipped, he can use Blizzard. If you take that staff off, he will lose the ability to cast Blizzard. But during that time that he has it equipped, when you gain AP from defeating the enemies, that will go towards that Blizzard spell. And once you've gained enough AP to learn the Blizzard spell, that means that he'll be then able to use the Blizzard spell at any time, regardless of what you've got equipped. And the same applies for the support abilities. What makes the support abilities different is that the support abilities aren't things that you use directly, they're more passive skills that you just equip and they do their own thing. So for example, you might have something that increases your HP or increases your experience, or something that will protect you against a particular type of status effect, because this game has a lot of status effects. But in order to equip the support abilities, you need to be able to use enough crystals to equip them with, because every character has a set amount of crystals, and it might cost, say, 2 crystals to equip this particular ability or 5 crystals to equip that other particular ability. Now at the start of the game this is pretty simple because you just have more crystals than what you can use, but it really does get to that point where you learn many more abilities than you can equip, and so you do have to pick and choose more. But you do have different characters, each with their own unique abilities. So for example, Vivi is the black mage, so he's the one that can use black magic. You have Quina, who is the blue mage, who can use blue magic, and they actually learn their blue magic by eating the enemies. They can actually only equip things that will supply them with support abilities. They can't learn active abilities through equipment, which makes them stand out as a bit of an anomaly. But we also have like Garnet and the Eco, who can both use white magic and they can summon the Eidolons as well. So each character is set with their own preset abilities, and there is no swapping round. You can't make Freya learn black magic at all. It doesn't work like that in this game. One thing that makes this game stand out as well is it also uses the active time event thing, or ATE for short, which is where you can see different clips of the story develop from different areas in the game at different times by pressing the select button. That is something that never really interested me all that much. But yes, I certainly was really excited to get this game when I did, and I certainly did really enjoy it. I have to say that this game really surprised me with just how much I loved this game. In fact, I think the industry has pretty much set a precedent that of the type of game that I like the absolute most, they are just not going to supply it. But sometimes, very rarely, you'll come across something and it will just blow your mind. And to be honest, this is one of those games. And this is an indie game, and so it came out at a reasonably low price when you compare it to the modern AAA games, or just AAA games in general. And I've got to say, I find it quite astonishing how we can have these big games that are being released and they use their budget to try to justify their price. But what we have here is a game that I feel, if it was selling for a full price for a AAA game, then I would be very willing to pay for it, because what this game delivers is really high quality. And I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, so to speak, but I think this stands as a perfect example of how if you do something specifically for a specific type of audience that isn't being satisfied by the market, what you can deliver is something just fantastic and that those people will love. And this is certainly one of those games for me. And so this is a game that was released on the PlayStation Network on PS3, and this game is called Rainbow Moon. Now, when I first played this game at the very start, I kind of had this feeling that it's a bit simple. Like, you start the game and you have one character, Baldrin, and a lot of the battles you can win by sort of hiding in the corner and attacking the enemies one at a time. But you soon level up and you soon get more party members, and battles start becoming overwhelming with just hordes of enemies that really doesn't last very long as a strategy. So allow me to explain the mechanics of this game. You can engage in battles by either walking up to an enemy or entering a random battle. Now, in this game they make random battles optional. When a battle pops up, you can press the X button to jump straight into the battle, or you can just ignore it. And this is a thing that many people praise. Now, I'm someone who really likes random battles as a battle entering mechanic, and I don't think that the whole press X to choose to go into a battle or not is inherently a good thing, and people say all JRPGs should do this. I strongly disagree. However, that's not to say that this game does it badly, because this game does have those enemies that walk around on the world map, and this game does have a food mechanic, which means that you don't want to be spending a lot of time walking around avoiding enemies anyway. So this game is set up in such a way that it's not put down by that at all. Now, actual battles take place on this grid, but it's not like a tactics or what would be called a strategy RPG where you choose a character, then you can choose where to move them to, and then choose an action. You instead have different sub-turns, and what that means is that, say if a character has 4 sub-turns, they can take 4 actions that turn, and an action can be taking a step, or it could be using an attack, or it could be using an item. So say you want to take 1 step to the side, attack, and then step away, and then defend. If you have 4 subturns, you can do that. But if you only have 2 subturns, then you can take a step and attack, but then not defend, or you could take a step and defend, but then not attack, or you could say just attack from where you are and then defend, or you could try to take a more retreative approach, I suppose, if that's the word. I'm not sure if retreative is a word, but you know what I mean. Like, you can just use up all of your subturns to run away, and the way that your turns are divided like this, I think really adds a nice element of strategy to it. Now, when you level up, you don't just get a bunch of stats. What that actually means is that the amount of rainbow pearls that you can spend on that character to level up increases, because each character, when you go to a savant, will be able to put rainbow pearls that they have collected through killing enemies into different stats, and you leveling up increases the amount that you can spend doing this. But one thing that I really want to talk about is the food mechanic, because this is a thing that I know a lot of people do complain about, but I really like it. When you walk around in this game, characters get hungry, and so you have to feed them. And you can find different items that will require an inventory space, which is another thing that you can work on leveling up by getting different items to increase inventory space and all that, and the different types of inventory spaces. But you can use this food to recover their hunger, and generally it's not a problem. Actually getting hungry where they've run out and starved to death isn't really a problem, but what makes this interesting is how it works with your inventory space, because you can easily get food by using the fruit rain ability, but it's a case of how much does this recover hunger by versus how much can I sell this item for? Is it worth me holding on to this type of food? And it really does add what I think is a lot of depth to the game, and means that you're not just wandering around endlessly. You do have to keep a track of these things, which I think is just fantastic. I think this game is fantastic all around. But there are just a few things that I just love about this game. Like, for example, you get to a point in the game where the game says, right, we're not giving you any more quest points from this point on. Here's a list of stuff that you have to get. Here's a new set of areas that you can go to. Just go there and see what you can do. And it's kind of like a breakthrough moment. And there's all sorts of these different breakthrough moments as well, because shops will update the more that you play and the further that you get. So you'll eventually get to the point where new food becomes available, or now you can buy stat boosting items. And there is this natural progression to it, and it's just fantastic. And this game took me a long time to platinum. I did platinum it, but it took a long time, and I can't say enough just how much I fell in love with this game. And of course, even after you defeat the final boss, there's a post-game stuff for you to do, there's secret bosses, there's extra dungeons, there's all of that lovely stuff. And I'm just going to move on, because otherwise I just repeatedly say how much I adore this game for doing what it did.